My name is Melvin Mirza. I'm doing my final project on healthcare AI chatbots and with their hallucinations explained. So to start off, you may ask, what are hallucinations? Hallucinations are pretty simple. They are when large language models think something like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, or if you're old school, Google Bard, Sonnet, Claude, whatever LLM you want to use. It's when they present false information or some kind of incorrect information that they are classifying as correct. Some kind of individuality that they believe is correct, or it's something that they firmly believe is correct, but it's truly not. Now, what may cause these hallucinations, you might ask? Well, they may be caused by a few things. Things like bad programming from the development team, or some kind of error in the training data. Something like data poisoning, where someone's maliciously adding false information into the data or the training time, or some other form, such as like prompt engineering, where you're trying to get it to generate false information, which in some cases are used in malicious ways. Now, these are what causes hallucinations, but why do we want them and why do we don't? Typically, we don't want them. The few cases that we do is not pleasant cases. There are cases like malicious generation or jailbreaking, for example. There's that old story of where their Microsoft product codes for Windows product keys were generated by AI using a very specific prompt. Though they're not supposed to do it, this generation of product keys is called jailbreaking. Now, jailbreaking happens when you specifically create a prompt. So you're using prompt engineering to think the AI is generating one, but it's truly generating another, causing hallucination. Now, we don't really need to get into depths of that. That's not what this is about today. What we are going into is hallucinations in AI for healthcare chatbots. I personally believe that we shouldn't be using these healthcare chatbots for our personal use, like self-diagnosis or some other form of diagnosis on ourselves, because one, they can't truly replace a physician or your doctor or some other expert who has studied this field. And two, their hallucination rates and just can be high, they can be low, depends on the model you're using. So it's always a risk. And there's a few other risks that we'll get back to later. But to start off with the first risk I mentioned, hallucination risk. Now, right here, this is from the Institute for Sports and Reconstructive Bone and Joint Surgery. This is a research project on hallucination rates that were generated by basing it off on sources and generating sources. Now, when you ask AI, such as Google Bard, which at the time was being used for this, ChatGPT 3.5 and ChatGPT 4, all three of them are LLMs. Both the ChatGPTs, one's a free version, one's a paid version. Now, there are quite a few differences between them. One has a lot more support, one does not. One has a lot more in-depth data searching, and one does not. Now, we have to take that in account while we're looking at these numbers as well. Now, this chart is going off of the sources that those AI has generated. So how the experiment went was that 33 responses, 11 responses to each of the large language models were generated multiple times. Now, these are the sources that were generated from those large language models. Now, when the large language model is doing the health diagnosis or some other form of diagnostics, in this case, it was searching for cures about different joint injuries and different muscle injuries and bone injuries. So in this case, it has to search the web and find some kind of document, article, or some other form for it to use to generate the information that it needs. Now, a lot of times, those articles are hallucinated. They are not true. And as you can see in these, the hallucination rate in these article sources were fairly bad. Two of them, roughly 40% for GPT 3.5, which, okay, not the worst. 28.6% for GPT 4, you're paying for a way better experience. But for Google Bard, 91.4% hallucination rate. That is majority. Over half, majority of it, not even just more than half, pretty much all of it is fake information that Google Bard was generating. Pretty much just all hallucinated. Almost every single source from it was hallucinated. As you can see in table 3 right here, this table shows the evaluative metrics of the assessed large language model. So based off of all the documents and sources that were generated from it, for GPT 3.5, 13 of the 13 of the sources were true positives, were completely active and true. 16 for GPT 4, 0 for Bard, false information. False positives are when these are the more hallucinations you can see. You can see in this case, GPT 3.5 generate a few more hallucinations compared to GPT 4 and Bard. But as you can see, they are all pretty high. Now, false negatives are information that they are saying that is not true, but is true. And out of these sources, 96, 93, and 109, these are not looking as good numbers. Now, recall percentage, precision percentage, they both go hand in hand as you're looking for, since 11 prompts were engineered to be put into this recall percentage is going based off of all the previous prompts that were inputted as well. Now, recall percentage is important, especially for when you're doing diagnosis on yourself. You may say, I have this symptom, but you remember I also have this symptom. You need a higher recall percentage to be able to go back to that previous symptom and link them together. The precision is how much accuracy they're getting between those recall percentages. The F1 score, that is a score, that's pretty much just a score that the researchers have given them. Now, all this is a lot of information, so why don't we break it down a little bit? We're going to go to explainability. What is explainability? Explainability is the ability to understand why or how the reason AI is giving us the particular output it is. So something like if we ask ChatGPT, what is the Steelers? And they're giving us the output. Steelers is a football team. Now us understanding the reason why it's said that it is a football team is the explainability part. The transparency is something that I personally believe we should highly focus on. This is the ability to understand why the AI is making that output and how it is made. This is going off of the data that it collects and how it analyzes that data to make the response. This is the transparency part. That I believe is one of the most important things for these kind of things, and especially for AI chatbots for health specifically. You need to know why it is generating the information it's getting, where it's getting its information, and how it's diagnosing you. Now, what are model cards? Model cards are documents that give visibility and knowledge about how an AI model works, as well as many other information such as risk, limitations, and its specific purpose. Now, model cards from this quote here is from NVIDIA, one of the leading in AI development. Model cards are structured and organized in schema. They are concisely report information on different factors like demographics, environmental conditions, quantitative evaluations, metrics, and where provided ethical considerations. Now, what does that all mean? Pretty much, model cards are a series of information that show how AI is working, what it is doing, and what the purpose of that AI is. So NVIDIA also believes that they need to improve model cards. Model cards are not as good as they should be, in my personal opinion, and in NVIDIA's decision as well, which is why they are starting to work on Model Cards Plus Plus. It is a upgraded version of model cards where they are generating information that is more accurate and is also more descriptive. So that not just programmers, but the average user will be able to understand it. That is something huge, especially for people who are just averagely looking at health diagnosis. They want to know what they're doing, and being able to understand the purpose of this AI and telling them that this is for your health diagnosis, that's something that they need to know. Now, IT Medical, that is a company that came up in my research. They developed advanced softwares such as for patient care, provider operations, remote consultations, and data management for hospitals, researchers, and other healthcare providers. So they kind of work on both in non-AI-based software as well as AI-based software. And right over here on the side, IBM Watson's, Google Cloud MedLM, AWS, Azure, Nuance, and Informatiak. These are all different AI health services released by many different companies such as Microsoft, Google, Amazon, IBM. These guys are massive in AI development, and these are specifically their health provider versions of AI. IT Medical is partnering with them to implement these AIs into different softwares so that they can be used in hospitals to give better data, help patient cares by being able to automate some patient timings, or help providers diagnose there or make remote consultations and make remote scheduling and whatnot. Over here, these are a couple of the model cards for the three of the biggest ones there: Google, Cloud, MedLM, AWS, and IBM Watson. I do have to specify these are not the full model cards. These are just snippets I have taken from them. The full model cards are at these links down below and also on the citation page. Now, the National Institute of Health, what is that? It is one of the leading government organizations for health research. And what are they doing? They currently are strongly engaged, encouraging people and companies to stay away from and be wary of AI health chatbots. They say that until they can be able to perfect these kind of things, they don't want people to fully depend on them yet. What they are working at currently is to enhance this content validation. What is content validation? Content validation is a set of software that is used to validate information and to make sure that the information that they are getting is proper and correct. How are they going to be doing that? They're going to be partnering with many different global health organizations and other healthcare providers to make sure that they can fact check their information with the real experts. Now, they also want comprehensive user education. So they want to be able to educate the users that are using these AI health chatbots and educate them how to properly use them, so that you're getting the best results and you're not getting any hallucinations. They also want to continue research in these fields, as well as making everything more transparent. So which is going back to that model card situation. And they also want to promote AI that benefits every community, something we all want. Now, UPMC, a little bit more familiar company, right here, headquartered right here in Pittsburgh, UPMC. While AI health chatbots show potential and easily accessing information, patients shouldn't expect to be using them, according to UPMC. Why is that? Because they have hallucinations. Now, they want to use it eventually, but not until it's perfected. Something that they are currently working on is digital twinning. Digital twinning is pretty much taking an AI to scan over a person, grab their measurements, health information, body index, etc., to create a digital twin of yourself. Pretty much the reason for that is so that your healthcare provider, such as UPMC doctors, will be able to test different kind of treatments on the digital twin, see what output comes, what kind of responses happen to the body. And they want to be able to make sure that you are safe with the treatment. Another thing that they're doing is improving their telemedicine using AI. That's just remote medicine over phones, prescriptions, stuff like that. They also want to automate patient interaction documentation. Now, one thing is that all nurses have to document all interactions that they make with patients so that they have a record of it and what is going on during the patient's day. So they want to be able to automate that, make their nurses' life much easier, which is a very respectable thing. Nurses should deserve the respect that they get, and this is going to be helping them tremendously. Now, like I said before, there's some drawbacks, and there's some things I'm very concerned about. One of them is ethics. While they have been doctored images, and if artificial intelligence makes the process much easier, there's just a lot going on. Something like deepfakes. It is a big risk. You are currently entering your body index, your personal information about your body, about yourself, about your person, into AI health chatbots. Data leaks are common. Data leaks happen many times. There's a big story about the Rock U, an old music company that's had a major data leak, and it caused millions of people's passwords to be put out to the internet. So data leaks are huge, and they're a big privacy concern. Now, imagine having deepfakes where people are already able to generate a decent level, which is quite unfortunate, but now that you're entering your AI into this AI, all of your body information, how much more accurate that can be and how much worse that can make it everything. There is a lot of things that you can just go wrong with this. I personally believe that there's a lot that we need to consider. In my personal opinion, it's just that it's too much of a risk to go on with something like this until it's perfected. And even then, having that kind of information out there in the internet in some kind of cloud server is scary to know. So I personally believe that we shouldn't be sticking with them. Stick with somebody you trust personally. So then my conclusion. This right here on the side is a code segment I wrote about data validation. Pretty much this takes a bunch of data inputs it into an object, and if that object, this is very pseudocode. So it's not actual code. Pseudocode is just temporary code that you write to get a general idea. This pretty much just says that we take in a data input, and if the data is correct, then output data correct. If it's not correct, output data is invalid. Simple as that. Now, this, like I said, pseudocode, very temporary, just to get an idea. Now, what I also believe is that we should be improving model cards. As I said, I personally really agree with NVIDIA's idea to have model card plus plus, which would increase the usability and increase the ideas that people have and give people more knowledge of what they're getting themselves into. Have more data validation checks to reduce hallucinations, limit and use monitor use for users. This one may be actually quite a bit contradictory because don't you want more data to have better information? Problem is, more data can also lead to false information as well, and more confusion and harder to trace where that data is coming from. So it's going back to that traceability. Now, it might be a lot harder with more users and more data, which is why to make sure that is correct, you want to start with and limit yourself. And periodic audits. I personally believe that we should have more and more audits going on. These audits are just to double check everything's going properly, take a look through the data, and just make sure that you're catching all kind of errors or some kind of problems that are happening. Now, that is pretty much it for me. On these following slides are my citations. So thank you very much.